Ms. Magdalena Garcés, professor at the Faculty of Social Science in Universidad Católica, and we have an invited Jean-Philippe Deranty. He's a philosopher, French, Australian. He works in University of Macquarie, and he's here in Chile to the third Coloquium, French Coloquium of Clinics of Works, and we are going to speak with him about his recently book, The Case of Work. Jean-Philippe, thank you very much for being here. I have a lot of questions for you, but I choose some questions that I think it's very interesting to hear someone as you. In times of now, at a time when many people are dreaming of freeing themselves from work, why do you believe it's necessary to reclaim it? What can you tell me about that?
So obviously many people would want to work less or not work at all if they could, and that's very understandable because many people's work situations are not good at all. They don't get the salaries they would want, they have difficult working conditions, they have bad bosses. So for many people working conditions are bad, but I think it's a mistake to take the conclusion that because working conditions are bad, therefore work in and of itself is bad. The first thing to say is that unfortunately we just have to work. And it's something that we actually forget sometimes in everyday life and in theory, in academic discussions. In the book, I emphasize the necessity to work and also the necessity that work itself is. And by that I mean the constraints in work. We just have to work. There's a lot of work to be done. Everything around us that we use, the entire world and the objects that are part of our existence are products of work. If you look around you, everything that you need is a product of work. There's a huge amount of work that is needed for us to conduct our lives every single day and into the next year and into the next generation. We need to eat every day, but we also need to teach our children. We need to take care of our bodies. We need to have as long a life as possible, to live long lives. We need a lot of work, and a lot of people are needed for a single life to be cared for. So there's a necessity to work. The argument I make in the book is that if you focus on the necessity to work, initially it looks like work is a constraint on our freedom. And so understandably then we would want to liberate ourselves from that constraint. But if you think about it, there are ways in which embracing this necessity, facing this necessity, actually can deliver good things for us individually and also as a community if the work is well organized. So the condition for work to become something positive in our lives, the condition for that is to organize it in such a way that it becomes what is known in academic debates decent work. So if work was organized in more fair, just terms and in more decent terms, then suddenly this necessity to work would kind of flip over from a constraint to something that is positive and can bring good things to us. There are many things that can be good in work if it's well organized, if it's decent and just and equal. And so we should not try to liberate ourselves from work fully. We should liberate ourselves from bad work. So that's the kind of big point I try to make in the book.
And the difference between employment and also work, and your theory about centrality of work.
That's right. So just from what I said before, if you think about all the things it takes, all the efforts it takes for us to live the lives we have, some of those efforts are waged, paid efforts. So we rely on someone to sell us something at the shop. We rely on someone to repair our car, and it might be someone that we pay in a kind of formal way. So a lot of the work that we need for our lives is paid, waged work. But a lot of the work that we rely on is not paid. There is no contract. To begin with, there's an enormous amount of work that happens in families that is essential for everyone to survive and perhaps to be happy and even thrive and flourish as a person. So my concept of work, and it's not me, it's not a very original idea, many people argue in the same way. Paid, formal, waged work is one part of the work that we need, but a big part of the work that we need is unpaid work, which is essential. Obviously work in the home, but not just. There's a lot of work going on. For example, many aspects of social life rely on work that is not waged work, voluntary work. The political systems in many countries rely on volunteers. Associations, cooperatives rely, and in some countries, they are very important aspects of social life, rely on people who are not paid to do the work, but do essential work. In the cultural realm, for example, many people are involved and work a lot without being paid for it, or very little, or not having a contract for it.
For example, firemen in Chile, that I told you they were volunteers.
That's right. And these are essential services.
Yeah.
And it's like that in every country. Every country relies on a lot of volunteering. So.
Related with that, the post-work ideas propose a future without human employment. What ethical and social risk do you see in that vision?
Yeah, so obviously the post-work movement is a powerful one, and it's understandable because many people suffer in their work. A lot of work is badly organized. So it's very understandable that there's this strong movement to liberate ourselves both from bad work, and even you can understand why many people argue we should get rid of the very idea or value of work. We should get rid of this obsession with work that is supposed to define modern society. That's understandable, but I think it's a mistake for two main reasons. First of all, as I tried to show in the book, but many other philosophers and thinkers and academics have argued in the same way, there are goods, benefits attached to good work. There are things we can achieve for ourselves and for the community through work that we cannot really achieve in other ways. For example, there are ways we can learn about the world and about ourselves and grow in our capacities through good work that are not available in other ways, I think. So learning, developing skills, manual skills, interpersonal skills, cognitive skills. Work is the best avenue for this when work is not unjust and indecent, of course. The other thing is that people who write about post-work, they take it for granted that if there was no work, let's imagine there was a lot less work, or perhaps even no work, they have this, they seem to think that we would still have some forms of social bonds that would unite us as a large collective, as a society, and they take that for granted. But I think it's a mistake, because if you think about what brings human beings together, most of the things that bring human beings together are things that at the same time bring them together and separate them. There's a logic of us versus them in many forms of connection, like typically religious connections or cultural connections. Whereas at work, if you think about it, of course a lot of work is hierarchical, but if work was more justly organized, as there was more recognition for everyone in work, then, and even when there is some hierarchy, if you think about it, the connections we have at work, just focusing on the work tasks, cut through racial, gender, age differences. When you focus on the task you have to do, and I'm really emphasizing this, of course a lot of the world of work has all the problems of discrimination about gender and ethnicity and culture and age and ability that you find in other ways. But if you just focus on work itself as an activity, then when we work, suddenly when we have to actually deliver a task, it doesn't matter then if the person is man or woman, black or white, young or old. What matters is the task. So what I'm saying is that post-work for me has this kind of almost dangerous side, which is that they take for granted that we can be united, when in fact a lot of the social connection comes from the organization of work.
So there's a hopeful, we are ending this interview, so there's a hopeful in work, as I hear you.
That's what I think. Obviously, there's a lot of injustice and a lot of issues of well-being in current work. Obviously, a lot of current work is precarious and difficult for many reasons and makes life difficult for people. That's obvious. But if you emphasize what philosophers call the goods of work, the benefits that work can have for individuals and for collective, for small communities and for society at large, then yes, I think there's still it's still a value to be kept. I think we should struggle for decent work and just work, not for the abolition of work, because if work was more justly organized, then we could really benefit from everything that can be attached to good work. And for me, that's individual flourishing, social connection, and in fact, a more democratic way of life.
Oh, thank you very much, Jean-Philippe. Bueno, dejamos hasta acá esta entrevista, pero si quieren conocer un poco más de la teoría de Jean-Philippe Deranty, también tenemos nuestro libro, Trabajo y Lazo Social, de ediciones UAH, donde pueden leerlo en español para las personas que no hablan inglés. Muchas gracias.